Hello and welcome back. It's Mark from Powersonic and Apprentice 121. I have got an interesting little segment here for those of you who are thinking of or currently getting into the solar PV and battery storage space. And it follows on from the last video I've shared around all of the stuff to do with G99s and bits and pieces around that process. This last week I went over to Northern Ireland to visit the good people at the ETT event. And I had a great time, and as a little side note to all of this, if you are ever thinking of going over to Belfast, the ferry from Liverpool is absolutely mint. It is really good. Those ferries are only maybe 3 or 4 years old. They're absolutely ginormous, I guess because of all the Brexit for it. Really well kitted out. It's brilliant hotel in its own little right for the little cabins you get. And yes, if you are thinking of visiting Northern Ireland, rather than getting on an aeroplane, if you like me and you don't especially enjoy flying, that is very much a great route. I did the sailing 10 o'clock at night to 6:30 the next morning. Basically go to bed in one part of the UK and get up in another. Anyway, we're going to get on with the actual segment of content now. And I did a little speech while I was there. Charlotte Bamber from the ETT invited me to offer a little bit of input into their event, which I was very humbled and honoured to do. And it was all about my journey into renewables. And I thought some of the content in and around all of that might be useful more widely. And for anyone who did attend, that was my first time doing any public speaking, and it may not have been as clear and concise as I would have liked. So I thought putting this out onto YouTube gives anyone who was there and wanted to have a little delve into it all, perhaps in full detail for any of the bits I missed out through the live performance, then they can come back and do so. It really is quite daunting. I've got to say huge respect to people like Darren Staniforth, Dave Austin, Gary Hayes, all these great presenters who are out in industry doing these live shows. When you're sat here now as I am talking to a camera and doing a podcast, that is entirely different to standing on a stage in front of 100 eyeballs staring back at you. Yeah, it's quite intimidating. Massive respect. I'm glad I did it. The invite from ETT was one I was never going to turn down. For those of you who don't know of Derek Thompson, he's an absolute superstar of a person who is no longer with us. He's much missed by everyone, especially out in Northern Ireland and working within SparkSafe and ETT. And he was a great help to me when I started forming Apprentice 121. And even before that, I've spoken to Derek for a long time on social media, and I used to have 2 or 3 chats with him on the phone through the course of most years, and I very much miss those now. And to stand on a stage that he helped to build and share my experiences was a huge honour and something that I wasn't going to walk away from being a chicken, because Derek was one of the people who really pushed me to talk more about what I do and share some of the opinions and views I've got in a roundabout way. So yeah, that was a huge honour. But anyway, getting back to the renewables aspect. I don't like heights. As we've just said, I sailed over to Northern Ireland, so I don't like going up off the ground any higher than step ladders is the truthful answer. So what led me to get into solar, I guess, is a really good question. I know when I did the eFix Live, Gary was making fun of me a little bit about being Yorkshire's best single-storey flat-roof solar panel installer. And he's got a great point, because you wouldn't expect me to be up there doing it, and here I am now getting involved with the guys out on site. Okay, I'm not on every job, on every roof, installing all this stuff. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I do go out and get stuck in from time to time alongside them, and I enjoy it. And it's kind of pushing yourself, I think, as an older member of industry to change and to develop your business and give opportunity to other people. So the driving force this end for all of that is the younger people in my company who want to input into some of these green agendas and also be involved in interesting areas of industry, doing something that they think matters. And that matters to me, so that's why we went on this journey at the outset. And I've been very, very surprised at the uptake we've seen. And as I said, over in Northern Ireland, they've got different categories of rain out there. John Lorimer shared some content ages and ages ago now where he was describing, I think there's 4 different types of rain in Northern Ireland, so they're not blessed with sunshine. And despite what the Yorkshire Tourist Board might present to other people out there, it's not all sunshine and roses in Yorkshire either. We get a lot of rain, to the point if we could sell it, never mind all of these fancy airlines based on oil being extracted from the ground, Yorkshire Airways would have been world leaders long ago. But solar systems still work in Yorkshire as well as anywhere else in the UK, and even more troublesome environments in terms of sunshine. The panels now can generate lots of energy, so there is a real way for us to market this stuff in an energy saving and cost saving way to consumers, because that's important. Let's not pretend otherwise. Most consumers out there are looking to get their payback. They want to see the value in it. The environmental aspects is maybe a big thing for a small percentage, but overall it is very much set in that cost space. So even for ourselves as relatively small installers, I was thinking maybe 5 or 6 jobs through the course of the first little period we get involved with solar, and we've actually done much more than that. We've got 200 kilowatts of generation out on roofs in Yorkshire now, and roughly speaking, your 3,000 or 4,000 units a year for every consumer, depending on their roof space that's available to them, and they're bringing in savings of £1,000 to £1,500 a year for each person. So the paybacks, you're kind of looking at a 7 to 10 year window, which is a conversation you can have with people. And obviously energy costs are going up at the minute as well. That's all in the news. So when that happens, those equations get even more in the favour, if you like, of those of us who are supplying this stuff to try and reduce people's energy costs. And it's okay that you're looking at that return on your investment over that 7 or 10 years, but instantly, almost straight away, you feel like you're starting to save money because your bills are going down. So it's okay that you put a big chunk of cash into something and hopefully it's adding value to your home and other such things as that. But you do start to feel those benefits. I know that myself as someone who's had solar installed in the last 12 months. I'm speaking as a consumer and an installer, if you like. So we've kind of got that there for us. There is that huge demand. And when I asked in the room over at ETT for people who had solar on their houses already, not many hands went up. So there's a massive catchment of people out there who don't have this stuff yet. You just have to drive around and look up. Most houses do not have solar panels, so there's a captive marketplace there. We're going to be looking at this. And then when I asked the question of the number of installers in that room, I think there was one person put their hand up. So there isn't many people serving that currently when we're looking at the industry as a whole. There's a lot of solar PV installers out there, but when we look at the electrical industry as a whole, most installers are not doing it. So if you want to kind of get into an exciting area of industry where the phone's maybe going to start ringing more often and you can make good money on doing the work, we all want to do that. We want to go to work to earn a good living. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't get these conversations where people get upset that you've been paid for sponsorship or you're making too much money on a job you're installing. Value is set by the marketplace, and there is nothing wrong with making money as long as you're not ripping people off, taking deposits and vanishing into thin air, as is the case with some of these big organisations that are set up purely to do that in some case. So most installers have been very ethical and wanting to make a good living. Nothing wrong with that. So going back to the journey we've had and kind of the process and what you might expect to do in terms of your journey to get into the industry, if you're going to make that decision, and I hope lots of other installers do, come back to that at the end. But it's taken us maybe 4 or 5 months to be able to enter. There's some hoops you have to jump through, as there always is with these things. So we did our training with NAPIT. They were absolutely brilliant. I've got to say the team there were really good at giving us advice. I was very unsure of all this. There wasn't a great deal of content out there. I was picking the brains of installers who were helping me, so people like Stuart Cato and Dan from DMH, they were a great help, and more recently speaking with Sam from Oval. So that kind of support from other installers is out there, but looking around trying to gather the information we need and where we need to go when you're hearing all these buzzwords about G99s and MCS and HICE and REC, consumer code protection, QMS manuals, you're just like, what's going on? That's the honest reaction of someone who's stuck in their ways in industry. We were well set as contractors. We have a good client base in other areas of industry. There was no real pressure on the business to have to start doing these things. We made the choice to, and then it's just investigating which ways you go. So anyway, NAPIT were fantastic at that. They guided us really well. We went and did our EESS, which is basically battery storage training with them, and also the PV training as well. And they were both BPEC courses. You can do them combined, where it takes about 5 days, or you can split them up into 2 separate modules. You don't want to take a full week out of work and do it that way, which is the approach we took. They then were able to advise us on the MCS process, so you have to kind of get together a big management procedure more than anything else. So it's documenting absolutely everything you're going to do in this QMS manual. If you go onto the MCS website, there is actually downloads there where you can put all that together yourself if you want, or there's software that you can use to put all of that in place for you as well. And when you've got to that stage, so you've got your training done, you've got your MCS process all in place, it will take some time, You can then arrange to have a site assessment where NAPIT, or whoever you're using, will come out and see you and observe an installation that you've done and give you any feedback. A bit like your assessment for your Part P, but as it was, more in depth in terms of the office and administration. That's changing for next year. So MCS are adjusting things so it focuses more on the actual physical aspects of putting systems onto a roof. So I imagine they're going to inspect us more thoroughly out on site and less time looking for our paperwork, which I think is a very sensible idea. So by the time you get into that kind of process, that's maybe where you will be. So the emphasis maybe won't be so much on the paperwork. It'll be more on making sure you've got a high-quality install to demonstrate. So that 4 or 5 month process of going through the training, getting ready for the MCS assessment, to then have them come out to see us. We used an install on my house. You'd probably be in the same position yourself where you're putting a system on a member of your family's or your own home to put forward for your initial assessment. You get through that, and then it's a bit of a waiting game for a few weeks while they get all the paperwork in order to say that you've successfully completed your MCS registration. You can then let HICE or REC know as it was. This is the process I've gone through myself, and today, sat here now, that's still what you would have to do. That maybe takes 3 or 4 weeks just for all those companies to see that, okay, they've got their MCS accreditation, okay, they've got the HICE accreditation, we can put them forward, and then you can start installing these systems and certifying them through the MCS systems. That was kind of 4 or 5 months. You don't have to be HICE and REC now in 2024. It can all just be done through MCS themselves. It's not compulsory. You can still choose to join them. I've spoken about that before in other videos, and there's loads of content coming out from MCS around all of that as well. So those options are available to you. But just to kind of set that out, 4 or 5 month period, and then you can start marketing this stuff. So with your first install to a customer, you're going to be going and doing your survey. So you're going to go and view the property, use all the training you've been given to do your calculations and design a system for them. You'd then do your G99 application if it's of a certain size, or a G98. We spoke about that on the last video. You can then do your install and make sure you commission it. You then process that through at the end, pretty much how you do for a normal electrical certificate. So you produce all your certificates and paperwork. We have our new circuit, obviously, so there'll be the regular EIC, and you would then do your commissioning sheets for the PV system, return that to the DNO for them to have a compliance trail, if you like, around the G99, if that's the process you're under. And then all of the documents kind of get pulled together into your QMS process through MCS, and you keep all of that in one collated place to evidence in the future if you need to. So there's all the manuals for the equipment you've installed. There's the insurance policy that you'll have taken out through MCS. That's how we do it, with a 2-year insurance policy as a minimum at the end of every job, and you get your MCS number with that as well. And then the customers, the important thing for them, going back to the whole value equation, when they want to get paid for any energy they're able to export, they need the DNO application and your MCS certificate. The rest is kind of secondary to that in terms of them being able to get onto an export MPAN, which is what they need to get onto. They had that conversation with their energy supplier. I've had solar PV installed. Here's my G99 and commissioning sheets, and here's my MCS certificate. Please, can you give me an export MPAN? And that kind of closes the process off from that point of view. So yeah, it's very doable. My hope is that, we're seeing this lack of skills. It's all the buzzwords floating around, isn't it? You see from government there's a skills crisis, and there's no real support and investment for them to do anything about it. But there is a decline in skills in industry due to people retiring, leaving industry. There hasn't been a big pool of people coming through training as apprentices, as historically was the case, and we're seeing that more than ever. And I think as we move towards renewables, we're at a big crossroads now where we're either going to have other sectors take that work. So you'll see roofers, maybe roofing contractors taking all the solar PV work. Becomes this plug and play mentality. We're already seeing those arguments for ditching DC isolators and making it okay for anyone to push MC4 connectors together because it's just basic plug and play. It's not the case. That's where lots of these systems fall down, and it's usually because an electrician wasn't involved. There is parts to play for everyone in all of this. You will need roofers at times when you've got difficult roof structures to work on. We need to understand as electricians we can't be meddling in that. But just because a roofer's up there doing the hooks doesn't mean they start to need to cable the system. And we need to get rid of DC isolators so they can do it. That's just madness. We need to be focused on the safety side of things and also increasing the skills of industry to meet that demand ourselves. And I guess as an employer, looking at this outside of just the profit and loss of a business, if I'm wanting to try and help industry a little bit, I've had a good career from this industry. It'd be nice to be able to train a few more people, I think, in the renewable space and try and impact into that. That's just me talking. I don't expect other people to have those same views, but I'm hopeful that maybe they will, and they'll consider opening up a renewables arm in their electrical company, taking a few people on and going on that journey, and hopefully you get the same result that I've had, where we find in lots of natural inquiries. And this isn't just from me having content on YouTube and social media and people coming to me through that. We're getting lots of local inquiries just from saying we do it. The phone's been ringing consistently to the point there's maybe one inquiry every day just from our local area. We're quite a rural place of East Yorkshire, and we're seeing that. So that isn't unique. That must be more widespread. So yeah, if you are thinking about it, if you're even remotely on the fence, go and do the training, see what you make of it, reach out to other installers already in industry. As I said, Stuart and Dan were brilliant with me. I'm happy to help other people if you're kind of local to me and you want to come and take a look and see what it's all about. There is that support there from other installers. We all see some of the not so good work, and we want to try and encourage electricians to get involved to help do it better. There's none of this dog-eat-dog kind of thing, certainly not around the smaller contractors, because there is that volume of work out there, and we all just want to see that leveled up a little bit, I guess. So I hope you kind of found that semi-useful running through it. I think I covered off everything that I spoke about on that event, and a little bit more perhaps as well. So yeah, other things to consider is always to do with insurance. So make sure you've got your paperwork in order. Tell your insurers you're up working on roofs. Access equipment, make sure you're investing into that. Safety is so important. There was a great presentation on safe isolation at the ETT event, and I was stunned to hear, just speaking totally separately to the topic of this video, that there's 13 deaths of electricians annually due to electrocution, which I find absolutely insane in 2023. And having sat and watched Louise Adamson deliver Michael's story before and watching it again on video, we need to get that to zero. With something drastically has to happen, where we're taking that more seriously. And I think it's kind of double pronged. There is a generation of people who really do want to make those changes and who are focused in on that. And then there's maybe a generation who will never change, and they'll always take those risks. And it's trying to offer some way of solving that problem. And maybe some manufacturers need to get together and have a conversation, who are kind of making the overcurrent protective devices, main switches, and then the testing companies, and they come up with a way to make it so easy that it is simpler to just lock off a circuit than it is to go and get a bit of electrical tape or something and stick it over it saying don't turn on. Where there's a way of having some toggles to lock out products on the front cover of a distribution board or something, I don't know, something along those lines, and then ensuring that as many people as possible see content such as what Louise has produced, because that is so hard hitting. How anyone could watch that and then continue to go on working on live cables, I don't think that's possible. It certainly changed me instantly upon seeing that several years ago, and I know from speaking to other people the same. I'm not going to sit here and preach and say I've safely isolated throughout the entirety of my career. I was shown some terrible working practices early on, and I worked under those circumstances as well. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. I think most people of my age in industry would give the same answer if they were being honest, and we can do a lot better even today. And Malcolm from Super Rod has delivered that message so brilliantly over the last few years, and the fact that they do that survey which collates this data, huge credit to them as well. And I'd like to help him try and work towards solving that problem once and for all. If there is anything that can be done in that aim, I will try very hard to help do it. And yeah, again, it kind of ties in a bit with the solar systems when we're saying get rid of your DC isolators in the fixed wiring. It seems counterintuitive to that safe isolation message to me, and that's not a narrative I'm going to go down. I'm going to stick to my guns on that. I think DC isolators are very important, and if they're wired up by correctly skilled and trained electricians, they've got a very good chance of never going wrong, much like every other bit of equipment we fit. We're not seeing these calls to get rid of main switches on a consumer unit, shower isolators, or anything else because they're burning out. It's always attributed to poor installation practices and kind of brushed over. The fact it's a DC isolator doesn't change that narrative. Let's do something to solve the problem and raise the bar on skills. Is my short overview of that one. Anyway, if you've got any questions in and around this, if there are any people thinking of getting into solar and you want to pick my brains, I will happily help you. I'm not saying I'm the fountain of all knowledge and will be able to answer your questions, but I will try, and I do know other people who will most likely be able to give the right answers, and we can pick their brains as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.